College Football Live. Brought to you by Acura. The most innovative thinking you'll find in an Acura.
UConn certainly gained a more national and more invested following last year because of everything that the team went through, including 5 agonizing losses by a total of 15 points, no loss by more than 4 points. There was the late touchdown at Cincinnati to make it a little bit closer game when they did have 711 yards, so that wasn't you're involved in some shootouts, Randy, but Brian touched on it. I mean, besides the emotions, and some of those losses were in and around the funeral of Jasper Howard, just to get those guys back up, get your staff back up, going back to work each Sunday and Monday after a loss like that.
Well, they're tough. You know, the North Carolina game, we end up losing that. We get a holding call in the end zone, you know, that gave them the safety. You know, Pittsburgh were ahead in that game through 3 quarters and then just didn't do a good enough job in the 4th quarter. West Virginia, we went up late in the 4th quarter, 2 minutes to go, and they ended up, they came down and scored on us. And then the Rutgers game where we score with 30 seconds to go, and they come back and score on a big pass play to go ahead of us. And then, of course, the Cincinnati, you know, that one was just an offensive shootout on both sides. But, you know, the biggest thing is, again, we just try to tell the kids, you take it one game at a time. You know, when that game's over, you know, we'll learn from it, we'll move on. You know, it's easier said than done, but I just think that just showed the resiliency, the character, you know, that team had.
Well, and for sometimes if a team loses a close game like that, they never recover.
Exactly.
One game, much less 5 games, but you were able to do it with your team and finish the season with 4 victories in a row. Well,
I tell you, the Notre Dame game, you know, thank goodness we had the week off after the Cincinnati game because of what happened there. And I was just worried that, you know, if we didn't have the week off, it would be tough. And to go out there, you see Jordan Todman here running on the touchdown, and then Lindsey Witten, who's with the Pittsburgh Steelers, now getting a sack there for us. And Jordan on the kickoff return was a big thing for us in that game. And then, you know, Andre was just a horse and, you know, got it done in that game. But it was just very, very difficult. If we didn't have that week off, and having that week off, it was good for us.
So then you blow out Syracuse, then you take on USF at home in the snow. 7 lead changes, 4 of them in the 4th quarter, finally winning on a field goal.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I felt so good for David Teggart in that game, you know, because, you know, David right here, you can see, and he makes this and, you know, goes through. He had a trying year. Jazz was his roommate. And so you can imagine the emotion that he went through. And I think the best part about that game, if you asked our players, was one of the players knocked me on my butt at the end of the game on the field.
Then you knocked South Carolina on their butts in the Papa John's Bowl down in Birmingham, where SEC fans probably don't know much about UConn, don't like losing to UConn, and you smothered their offense, held them to 205.
Yes, we did. We played very good defense that day. And, you know, our kids, we didn't have the kind of year that we normally have defensively at UConn. And our kids really wanted to send a message defensively, and the coaches and the players just did an excellent job against South Carolina.
So let's look at this year's notable games. After the game in the Big House, we talked about Temple, which has a bunch of starters. I think 19 starters back off a 9-win team. West Virginia, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh are all at home. Those are the teams that, along with you guys, are figured to be the top contenders. That's a plus.
It is. It is. Anytime you can get home games in the Big East and against those teams, it's really something that we need to do. We need to get West Virginia this year. We haven't, that's the only team in the conference we haven't beaten since we joined 6 years ago, but that's a tough stretch for us. And, you know, again, it's a tough schedule, but, you know, it's one that I know our players are really looking forward to.
Well, you have an opportunity to get those teams at home. You lost to them last year by very slim margins. What's going to be the difference this year that's going to take you over the top of those teams?
Well, it's a matter of just finishing. You know, we just have to finish those games, and we can't make some of the mistakes that we made last year in those games late in the game or at times turn it over. The biggest thing for us is, you know, we've got to be a ball-controlled team. We've got to be a team that doesn't give up the big play defensively. And then if we can win the field position battle, we're going to be okay. And that's the thing we need to do. But like I said, we need to be a little bit more dynamic and get a few more big plays in the passing game this year to help us.
And also winning road games, which is something you haven't done to a great degree in the conference, and the unbalanced schedule, 4 in the road, only 3 at home in the Big East this year. Coming up, more from Randy, who is, by the way, on the rules committee. We'll get to that in a second. And also, what if the Hokies, the Hurricanes, and the Eagles had stayed in the Big East and not go to the ACC? We'll get that around as well.